I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. Would everyone who is going to be providing testimony before this panel today, please raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony that you are about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And one at a time, could you please state your name for the record, please?
I'll start off. My name is David Parry. I'm with JMT Engineers.
My name is Philip Borst. I am with Scungio Borst International. We are the owner rep for the client and owner Delaware River Waterfront Corporation.
Mr. Gould?
I'm Robert Gould. I'm with Pannoni Engineers.
Mr. Lippert?
Shane Leapart, also with Pannoni Engineers.
And I'm NRL Monksel, also with Pannoni Engineers.
Okay, fantastic. Is that seems to be everyone? Do we capture everyone on that? All right, board members. Prior to today, has any board member discussed any information in whole or in part with the appellate or anyone directly or indirectly connected with this case? Mike Bellata?
No.
Dave Hoffmeister?
No, sir.
Brian Gilbert?
No.
Sarah Poindexter?
No.
Patrick McDonald?
No, I have not.
And outside of staff, the chair has not had any communication. With that, all of the things being dispensed of, welcome to everyone. We appreciate you coming in, and I would like to explain a little bit about how we're going to run the hearing today. My name is Walt Krasinowski. I'm the chair of the Plumbing Advisory Board. And the way we conduct our virtual hearings is we will allow the appellate's team all of the time that they are required to explain the nature of their appeal request, any background, share any screens for documentation. We will provide you all the time necessary in order to explain your appeal request. After that's been completed, one at a time, I will call on the board members, and the board members may or may not have additional questions for the appellate team, regarding the appeal. After the questions have been done, we'll ask the appellate team for a final comment, if any. And then upon the end of that, we will put you back in a waiting room and we will go into off-record deliberations. When them deliberations have ended, we will come back on record and we will proceed to vote on record in front of the appellate team. Is there any questions regarding the way we're going to conduct our meeting today?
No, sir.
Awesome, great. So I don't know if you folks have a copy of the agenda, but what we did is we broke this down into 3 different appeals because you have 3 different buildings. And we broke them down to building number 1, building number 2, and building number 3. So I will call the first building, I will call the first appeal, and we can go from there. We'll take these all on simultaneously, but because the buildings are a little bit different in nature and a little bit different in fixture counts, it's important that we take them one at a time for discussion. So today being June 6th, 2024, we will hear case number MI 2024-003-590 for 1 South Christopher Columbus Boulevard. We're going to call this building number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be, for reference, PP number 2024-007-972. And for the sake of identifying this will be the building that is signified on your application as skate locker rooms. So if we're all in agreement with that identification, Mr. Mr. Perry, by all means, you and your team, please begin.
Right, well, first of all, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we thank you for an opportunity to appear today before you members. We greatly appreciate this opportunity. In terms of this project, this is one of the most significant public work projects in the city's last several decades. It's all part of the capping of I-95 and the creation of Penn of the park at the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation. Due to the enormity of the project, as you can imagine, it has huge impact on the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation's normal operations. So we're here today to seek relief so that we can put some temporary buildings up to maintain some of the activities during the construction phase. And in terms of explaining the individual buildings, I'm going to turn this over to Phil Borst, and he'll take it from here.
I would like to interrupt just, Dave, just one quick moment. And I neglected to comment to some of our new board members. For those of you who don't know, Mr. Perry was the commissioner of the Department of License and Inspections that helped assemble this very board that is sitting here today. And I would like to acknowledge that and say thank you to that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please continue.
Great. So, again, just to echo Mr. Perry's comments, thank you all to the board and everyone here for all of your time. We understand you're extremely busy with everything going on in the city, and we thank you for the volume of your time and attention today. I would like to, I'm trying to share my screen. Is that okay to share my screen for a moment?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up a drawing just to kind of give us an overview of, if you can forgive me, I'm just having a little issue opening it here. Let's see, share. Okay. Can everyone see the drawing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, sorry, I just have to maneuver. All right. So the building that you're referring to now, sir, is this restroom that's right here. That's the skate locker restroom. And this restroom, so as Mr. Perry said, the project itself, this is the Blue Cross, Independence Blue Cross River Rink. If everyone has been down on Columbus Boulevard, Delaware Avenue, it currently resides directly where the I-95 cap project is being demolished. So this location had to be completely moved. We're moving it north to the neighboring north lot. And if I can just acclimate you, this large rectangle is a tent structure. This larger unit is a tent structure. And what we're doing is we're placing restrooms into a prefabricated shed structure. The sheds are being completely fabricated off site, and they're being brought on and placed and can be moved. So this is one unit. The second, or I don't know which number the order of the appeals are, but this is a office shed that has one toilet in it. And then this is the third item that'll be the third item in the appeal. So the first one is a 12-foot by 60-foot shed. This is a 12-foot by 60-foot office shed with one restroom. And this one is a 12-foot by 34-foot shed that will be a unisex restroom. I wanted to show you this drawing for the overlay so you could understand its relationship on the site. We do have access to the shop drawings we can bring up. And on the call, I have our engineers from Pannoni. We have the project engineer, we have a project division director, and we also have the licensed plumbing engineer on the call.
Phil, can we clarify one thing for record, please?
Of course.
You had mentioned that these buildings are being relocated. So these are the buildings in question. These are new structures, correct? You're not moving the existing structures over.
No, sir. So let me correct that. This right here is an existing employee restroom trailer. This one is being relocated. The structures that we've applied for, these are all sheds that are prefabricated and are brand new.
Okay,
When I
thank you.
mentioned earlier, the site is being relocated, but we're having to accommodate the
I-
location.
I
I'm
just want
sorry?
to clarify that I just want to clarify that for record.
No, thank you, sir. And forgive me if I missed it.
Nope.
The site itself serves thousands of, community members, city members. I think we're all familiar with the use of the site. In the summer, it's a roller rink typically. In the winter, it converts to an ice skating rink, but it's a community destination location. Those who may not know, there's fire pits, cabins that can be rented. There's vendors that exist inside here, and it's a wonderful location for community members to congregate and really enjoy the public space. But it's a significant revenue source for the city as well. Those who may not know, Delaware River Waterfront Corporation is a non-for-profit, but it's really a it's an entity that serves the city. So that's the overview. I can take us, would you like me to go deeper, or is there questions we should ask, or I can take us deeper and turn it over to the engineers if we'd like.
I think that as far as placement of the buildings and the nature of why their request is coming about, I think that kind of captures it. You're welcome to have the engineers explain their theory on fixture counts and the piping, the method of piping, if you'd like to do that.
Sure, and if I may, before I turn it over, so the reason for the variance is that it's prefabricated and there's PVC piping inside the sheds. We did place, to try to protect the integrity of code, we placed cast iron piping to everything that exits the building. So as they're fabricated, it's cast iron that exits the toilet, from the ring down of the toilet, from the wax ring down, it comes out, it's all cast iron that exits the building. Inside is the PVC, which is protected inside the walls with its normal construction inside the space, all again prefabricated offsite. If I may, I'd like to turn it over to Pannoni for the exact fixture count, if there's flow requirements. I'm not sure, Robert or NRL, are you able to speak to that for us?
Sorry, guys, I'm fumbling for my mute button here. You can hear me now?
Yes.
I think you could take the screen share off now, Phil. I think we kind of got the
Okay.
description of the site. Thank you.
So I don't believe, and NRL, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't believe we have any concerns about fixture count. The question that we were asking for a variance for was the material of the sanitary piping within the structure itself. We understand per the Philadelphia Plumbing Code that we would require metallic piping, being that we're a non-residential application. But given that these buildings are temporary, we were requesting variance that the portions of the piping that are within the prefab enclosure scope be PVC.
That's understood, but it's within the scope of the practice and the purview of the board to ask any questions regarding the appeal that is germane to the plumbing code, and fixture counts is one of them. That's the only reason I suggested, if you had any information on your basis of your counts, that we just ask you that now, kind of get a step ahead of it.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can I interrupt for a second? I'm a little confused because I thought, Phil, you just said that everything exiting this structure is going to be cast iron. And
Yes.
I think the gentleman that just spoke said that the appeal is for PVC to be used within the structure. So just want to, if you could clarify which one that is, I'd appreciate it.
So Mr.
Sure.
Right, so Mr. McDonald's asking for a clear line of delineation between where the non-metallic and metallic piping is used. I think you did describe it. He might have missed it, but if you
Okay.
would indulge us and describe it one more time?
Of course, always. So the cast iron comes in where the toilet ring, so the toilet ring penetrates the floor. Inside the shed itself is our request for PVC, not from the toilet, but all other plumbing that's inside is PVC. And then from the ring down for the drainage for the toilet that exits is cast iron.
Mr. McDonald, did that answer your question?
Yeah, so what we're saying, and if I could just follow up, so what we're saying here is that there's PVC used for the other fixtures in there, such as the lavatories. Are they tying into a into the toilet bend, or are they exiting separately?
Robert, can you help me here on this one?
NRL, why don't you hop in here because you're more familiar with the minutia of the design.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. So what confused me is when Phil said that the cast iron is exiting from the I get from the toilet flange. I'm assuming that from this conversation that there's PVC exiting also for the other fixtures such as lavatories, or is the PVC tying into the closet and into the bend for the toilet and exiting as cast iron? I'm assuming that's not the case, that it's exiting with PVC for some of the other fixtures, but the cast iron is solo to the water closets. Is that correct?
Patrick, what I think we're gonna do in the essence of time, I think we'll hold these questions till the cross examinations. If that's
okay. Yeah.
I would like the appellate team to complete their presentation. I think that's important.
Okay, so it was our intention for sure to have the metal exit the building. So I can double check to make sure that, I guess you're worried about domestic water. We can do that and take a look at it. I'd like, if you don't mind, if NRL, if you could just bring up the, I'm going to see if I can just bring it up here and make it easier. If you could bring up the shop drawings to show the fixture counts and guide them through the fixture count, that would be great.
I can do that.
Thank you. Sorry if my conversation created confusion.
No, it's no problem.
Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is the permit plans generated for the skate locker restroom. And the plan showed the details of number of fixture counts. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 water closets, 4 urinals, and I believe 12 lavatories total. And based on my calculations, this adds up to 60 DFUs.
It's 10 water closets, yeah, not 9.
You're right, 10 water closets, correct.
Okay.
Now, if you can, NRL, if you don't mind, if you can go down to show the riser or at least explain the domestic water so we can address board member McDonald's concern, that'd be great. NRL?
You mean the sanitary for the lavatories?
Yeah.
The intent for the design is to address the sanitary for the lavatories similar to the water closets. Any sanitary piping outside of the prefab structure is to be metallic cast iron in this case.
He's asking for inside the structure.
Inside this structure, similarly with the water closets, we'll have PVC piping that supplies all the lavatories. and the sanitary connection within the structure. In terms of domestic water supply outside, we have copper.
I think Phil asked you if you were able to bring up a riser diagram. I don't necessarily need to see it. I think it would be helpful. But as part of your team, he asked you if you could bring that riser up.
I don't believe we have a riser diagram generated for the structures, but
Okay.
Yeah, we felt that the plans identified essentially was the riser in this case. It was simple enough that we could show the piping.
Okay. All right. If you could take that screen share down and please continue if you have any more to your presentation.
So would you like us to go into the other restrooms, or do you want to?
Well, let's just, as I mentioned in the beginning, Phil, if I may call you Phil, let's take this up. Let's take this up one at a time. So that
Okay,
we're
understood.
calling this building number one, and we can
Yes.
get all the questions and everything
Okay.
dispensed on building number one, and we'll shift into building number two, which once we get these questions out, is going to answer a lot of the questions for the other buildings.
Understood. Okay, so I mean, this ultimately takes us through the conversation for building one.
All right. So I think it would be helpful for us to ask some questions on this building number one, and therefore it may make building two and three more expedient. So if you have no more information on your presentation, we'll move into questions from the board.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Would we be able to take the screen share down now?
yes.
Great. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, what we're going to do now is we're going to ask questions from the board, beginning with me, and then I'll go around and I'll call in the board members to ask any specific questions. I guess my couple questions are these buildings, I will call them buildings or sheds, or we'll call them buildings for the sake of discussion. Are these buildings, is the piping already in them?
Yes.
It's been completed, the buildings are done and purchased?
No, so they're purchased. The 12 by 60 building one is about 70% complete. And building two, the single office that only has one single toilet, is 70% complete. Building three, to 12 by 34, has not yet begun.
Okay. I guess it calls the question, if you were piping them new, what would be your reasoning for not using code compliant materials to begin with? Cost factor, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it was significant cost factor for the city. So sorry.
No, that's fair enough. That was my thought was going to be your answer, but I needed it on record. And before we proceed, can we assume that the connections, you said you're bringing individual connections out for the water closets and things of that nature. Are we to assume that these are going to be of a minimum depth of 36 inches at the connection point?
Yeah, so for the underground utilities that connect to these, the underground utilities have been installed. They are, I defer to Pannoni to know the exact depth. I don't want to misspeak. But there's a stub up that comes up out of the ground that these will be connected to. And all of the underground utilities are installed pursuant to code regulation. They are, the underground utilities have been installed in accordance with code.
Perfect. And can we assume that you're taking the proper precautions to prevent freezing? Because if we're looking at the detail of that building, it's sitting on the 4x4 kind of strips. So there's going to be a small void area. Can we assume that you're taking proper precautions to protect from freezing?
Yes, sir. We've requested insulation to be placed where required to ensure that there won't be freezing and won't have damage to the units.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that concludes my questions. We'll go around the board now. Mike Bellotta?
No questions.
Okay. Patrick McDonald?
Yes, I have a couple. First, I just want to confirm that the reason why we're having this hearing, the request is, the purpose of the request is to use non-metallic piping, both sanitary and water inside the units. Is that correct? Is that the reason for this hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then what still confuses me a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, is why attempt to use a cast iron flange and cast iron exiting for the water closets when I believe what I'm hearing is that PVC is exiting separately for the other fixtures. If that's correct, please confirm that. And then I'm just I'm wondering why we even have to bother using the cast iron on the water closets if this is approved for the other stuff, for the other fixtures.
Okay, so I believe Pannoni had mentioned that the intention was to use copper on the other. We appreciate your question and thank you for the consideration. So we went to cast iron to try to accommodate the code as best we could from the cost perspective. These units are honestly they're when the caps finish, these go away, right? Like, so the money spent from the city, the money spent from Delaware River Waterfront Corporation into these structures is for their use only, and then they eventually go away. So we were trying to minimize cost. But when we realized that the code required the metal, we tried to accommodate to the best of our ability. That was the intention. So if it's required to have copper on the domestic water coming out, then that's what we will do. If we're allowed to have PVC, to be honest, we would love to be able to do that if we're allowed to. But we want to serve this board properly, and we want to construct it properly with your requests.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that, Phil, and that does bring some light to the confusion that I had. The second question that I have for you, and thank you, that explains it to me. The second question I have is, we've all talked about temporary structures. Is there a time frame that you are required, that you're going to be required to remove or replace this, and how long will that term be?
Phil, let me answer that. Patrick, 5 years. It's on the application.
It's on the application. Okay.
Move on, please.
Okay, that's it. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Phil Dobbins?
No questions.
You. Michelle Brisbane?
No questions.
Thank you. Sarah Poindexter?
No questions.
Thank you. David Hoffmeister?
One or two questions here really quick. The buildings are being constructed off-site. Where are they being constructed?
It's with a company called Stoltzfus Structures. I believe they are in, forgive me, I didn't, I can pull up their contract. I apologize. It's in Pennsylvania. It's in Eastern Pennsylvania. It's about 45 minutes, an hour from the site. If you can give me a minute or two, I can pull up their address.
It's just confirming that it is constructed outside the city limits.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Is there any building inspection happening with those buildings outside of the city limits?
They have their own inspection group, and we can have Pannoni go up and do inspections as well. We've been looking at them via photograph. So we can conduct any inspection that you would like us to do.
Um,
Hi, could I?
Hello?
Could everyone mute, please, until they're ready to speak? We're getting a lot of feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to confirm, the underground material is all cast?
Yes, that has been installed properly pursuant to code.
Okay, and is there any exposed non-metallic piping in the structure?
Any exposed
In other words,
in-
will you see pipe on the walls? Will you see pipe in the enclosure when you walk in to use the facility?
understood. No, that'll all be covered. Sorry. I inside the structure there is PVC, but to a consumer when they walk in, there's a possibility of underneath the sinks maybe. I'm just thinking the sinks are wall hung, so there's a possibility that you may see the domestic feeding the
And
sinks.
can somebody explain the HVAC system within the structure? Being what I'm getting at is it an open return? In other words,
It looks like,
does it re-
I can answer that. It looks like there's a mini split that's indicated on the drawings.
so there is no return, open return that gets ducted, that is ducted or is not ducted?
It's not ducted. It's a split system, as Mr. Chairman had said. There's a louver vent on the opposite side gable, and the toilets are vented through the roof.
Are you concerned about concealed pipe and smoke propagation?
Well, that and just the fact that the fumes are toxic.
Which fumes? I'm sorry. Which?
The PVC fumes
are
if it was to
toxic.
catch fire.
Okay, no, that answers, and I'll take a look at that as well while we deliberate. That concludes my questions, Chairman. That's all.
Thanks, Dave. Brian Gilbert?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, a little bit following up with what Dave asked. So plumbing, structure, everything's being fabricated by this Stoltzitz or the name of the contractor. I didn't quite hear you. Can you confirm for me or tell me no, are they using licensed Philadelphia plumbers to do the plumbing work?
I do not believe they're licensed Philadelphia plumbers.
Are they licensed plumbers at all? Or is it the same guy hanging drywall and then putting in pipe?
No, they are licensed. My understanding from them, and they've confirmed that they are licensed plumbers. They're just not licensed Philadelphia plumbers.
Okay. Now looking, I don't have the plumbing drawing here. It looks like mine's upside down. I couldn't even, it looks like I have a plan view of just a wall layout. Are these structures, I'm going to call them, are they sitting on a poured slab? Are they sitting on an elevated cinder block structure? Or what are they, essentially, where are you landing is what I want to know.
On asphalt.
On asphalt. So you're going to have asphalt. They're going to sit on these 4x4 dead men. They're indicated in, I believe I saw them indicated in building 2. And you're going to have plumbers install the cast iron for each individual toilet coming out, or is that part of the structure and they're going to try to land into a bell?
Yeah, so they exit the toilet, the water closet. They connect into a lateral. The lateral ties once into the site underground utilities. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I think I'm wrong on that. Enron, help me on that. Are they individually?
They're not individually connected. We have about 2 to 3 fixtures connected to 3-inch sanitary line. And I can bring up the drawings.
So you'll have several 3-inch. Well, I guess what I'm getting at here is this is going to sit.
Stop, Brian, we're going to have to stop there a minute. Your previous testimony said that you were coming out individually from each water closet and tying them into site piping. So before we proceed, we need to clarify that.
Okay. I'm sorry, when I said they come out individually, I meant that they exit the building individually.
And they tie on to site piping that you already have established.
Correct. But I don't remember saying that I don't remember saying that they connected individually into the ground. And I apologize if I misspoke. It was not intentional. They exit the building individually. And then they are connected underneath. So I'd really feel better if Pannoni spoke to the technical aspect of this, of the specific to it. So Pannoni, can you jump in here, please?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the testimony is now unclear, so I need to clarify it.
I'm trying to clarify because if this is sitting on asphalt, this is what I'm getting at. If this is sitting on asphalt, you have no dead space or mechanical space underneath, you're going to wind up bringing up 10 water closet risers for flanges. I'm assuming 1 2-inch riser, maybe 3-inch. I'm not doing fixture unit counts for the urinals. I'm sure 1 2-inch for each side of the lavatories, and 2, 4, 6. That's right on the edge there of 2-inch capacity. It seems to me like you're going to have to do a lot of work on site. If you're picking up each individual one, they have to go into the ground and tie into an underground building sewer that you've already established. Or are they coming, is there a dead space under there that is serving the mechanicals? I'm just not seeing it without a side elevation.
Phil, I think you may be able to speak about the dead space underneath the structure to wrap the sanitary.
Yeah, there's a 7-inch dead space underneath. So the shed rises 7 inches of space underneath. But Enel, I think what they're worried about is the connections into the ground.
Because that's certainly not going to be at 3-foot depth. If you have a 7-inch dead space, you're leaving the confines of the structure and then going underground.
So right now, the underground utilities are ran underground at the depth that they're required. Then there's stub ups that come up from those underground, from the sanitary and the domestic water. The stub ups come up to receive the building connections. The stub ups are not underground. They stub up out of the asphalt surface and they connect to the shed. So I don't know, do you have anything that can show this better?
Maybe
like Brian said, if you're stubbing them up, you're gonna have to land them pretty darn good, to get right over them connections.
Where you're running horizontal in that 7-inch space, and then that's obviously not going to be a conditioned space. And I would say that at that point, you're going to want a little more than just insulation.
We need to clarify, Brian and NRL, we need to clarify, it was our understanding from previous testimony that there would be individual connections being made for each individual water closet. Now, it seems like that might not be the case now. So what we need to establish now before we go forward is there individual connections, or are you running a manifold underneath it coming out with one connection for the water closet? I think that's really what needs to be established.
So we have two to three plumbing fixtures tied in inside the structure, and 3-inch sanitary line exits for every 2 to 3 fixtures and tie into the site plumbing underground connection.
Every 2 to 3 fixtures. What fixtures specifically? Are they 2 to 3 water closets?
They vary depending on the total DFUs connected to each 3-inch sanitary, and the drawings show the specifics of what fixtures are connected to each 3-inch.
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just a little bit more confused. I think
Enel, can you please bring up a drawing that shows the connections?
Drawing would be good, because I think what Mr. Gilbert's alluding to, a 3-inch horizontal branch is not sufficient for 10 water closets.
Yeah, that's not it. There's multiple water closets. There's 2 to 3 water closets to that are connected that then exit. So NRL, I just need you to be able to express it. If you can't, I have to try to find some kind of illustration for them.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
I'm sharing my screen again. Let me know when you can see this.
Can see it.
Okay. So the drawings indicate the number of 3-inch sanitary piping that exits the structure, and the type of and count of fixtures connected to each 3-inch varies depending on where the 3-inch sanitary is. So in this instance, we have water closet 2 and lab 1 connected to a single 3-inch sanitary.
I can see that
Mhm.
now that explains it a little bit better. So it appears that you're connecting 2 water closets to 1. You're coming out with 1 3-inch sanitary. I see that there.
And those stub ups exist in the field to receive. It looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, got it. But what's also confusing now in this discussion, if you could just hold tight there a minute, let's work from right to left. Let's leave the water closet 2 and lab 1 alone. Water closet 1, water closet 1, which would be them 2 water closets, correct?
Correct.
Am I reading that correctly, that you're running 2-inch sanitary to pick up the second water closet?
Yes.
How can you run 2-inch sanitary for a water closet? The minimum size in any model code is 3-inch.
We
We're
can,
running 3-inch for water closets and 2-inch for urinal.
That's not what it says on the drawing we're looking at. The drawing we're looking at, and we're working from right to left of our screen, let's call it the second and third water closet, you have 3-inch sanitary pointing to the second water closet in. You have 2-inch sanitary pointing to the third water closet, which would indicate to us that that piece of piping between the second water closet and third water closet is 2-inch. It specifically says right there, 2-inch sanitary.
No, it does. It says it. So if that needs to be 3-inch, then
we can make that
We
correction.
will correct that.
and then
the problem is because these are getting fabricated off-site, as some of the other board members have already alluded to, because they're getting fabricated off-site, they're getting fabricated to another code jurisdiction because they're being fabricated outside the city of Philadelphia. So our plan examiners for the department are not going to have any say in how these are piped. But obviously that is incorrect.
No, so sir, you're correct. And Pannoni is designing these for us so that they were designed to Philadelphia. I think this is a mistake. I'll make sure that our fabricator corrects it. If they have to redo it in the field, they'll redo it. I mean, if they have to redo it in their shop, they'll redo it in the shop. We brought Pannoni in to do the MEPs for the purpose of having Philadelphia code, so there'd be no deviation. And we're obligated to provide that. And if it needs to be edited, it will be edited and corrected.
Yeah, so
All right.
we're gonna have to, you're gonna have to take a look at that. And that's something that you could talk to L and I about. This is something you can change with L and I, but I mean, obviously these have to be built, or any structure has to be built to minimum code standards, and that's not minimum code.
No, understood, sir. So it wasn't the intention. It was not the intention that the fabricator is the code awareness. We brought Pannoni in to be the Philadelphia awareness. So if this is just a drawing mistake, it's our issue.
Well,
We'll get the drawing.
Well, Phil, it's not being built to Philadelphia code in any fashion. So if you were building this to Philly code, that 2-inch sanitary vent would have to be a 3-inch sanitary vent. However, if you're building it to the I code theories, which is outside the city of Philadelphia, that 2-inch vent is sufficient. So
But
this,
every lavvy would have to be individually vented as well.
yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can't kind of pick and choose, use a little bit of Philly code, a little bit of I code. It would have to be maintain one or the other, standard.
No, understood, sir. It was not our intention to pick and
We know it
choose,
was,
but
we know it's not your intention to, we're just kind of pointing out some of the obvious things. So, if we could take that back off.
Oh, can I clarify one thing before we take
I'm
this
sorry,
drawing
I
down?
was gonna allow you to continue with your question.
I wanted
You did that.
the drawing being up.
Mhm.
I just want to clarify your underground situation here. You have this 3-inch, let's just look at the handicap stall with the water closet and the lavvy. You're indicating a 3-inch sanitary underground. Is that a riser coming out of the ground? And is that connection within the footprint of the structure?
this connection is not within the footprint. That comes out 9 inches outside of the footprint of the structure.
So that is going to be open to the elements.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. If I misspoke earlier, then I'm incorrect.
And then you have this 1.5 inch, well, this 2-inch lavvy going underground from the structure, tying into what I'm assuming is this 3-inch underground, and hopping up on the other side for the lavies. And that's going to be, I saw on your other drawing how to color code it. It looked to me as you had the intention of doing that in cast iron. Is that your intent here? The underground piping is going to be done cast iron?
Yes, I want to confirm that with Panoni's drawing, but yes.
All right. I have one more question and I'm done with you. I know I'm a lot. So at the end of 5 years, is the skate rink and everything else moving to a different location?
Yes.
So it's not going to be, hey, can we apply for a variance and keep these structures up?
No, sir. As soon as the cap is finished, all this relocates.
All right. Thank you.
And I want to apologize to the board for any errors that have occurred in this. It's been a fast-paced push. There's no excuses. I don't intend to make any excuses. We have our engineers to help guide us, and there was no intention to pick and choose by any means. We were trying to get the connections proper and bring them in. I think it's just maybe a mistake, and we can get them corrected, and we want to put in what you would allow us to put in. So if the sanitary obviously needs to be 3-inch, I'll have Panoni correct the documents, and we'll have the fabricator install it properly. Our intention is only to do it to the best of our ability, right?
Phil, we understand that this is all, this is all quick coming in. I mean, we just got this yesterday, and actually we didn't get this paperwork out to the end of the day yesterday. So it's all fast paced. We understand that, and we're not suggesting someone's trying to do something wrong, but what this board, because it's a technical board, what we always attempt to do is point out the obvious deficiencies.
Sure. And we're grateful for your guidance.
Yeah, no, we're not suggesting anyone, is intentionally doing something different. I mean, the only thing moving forward that we would suggest, if you're going to build it to Philly code, build it to Philly code. And, again, that branch would have to be 3-inch, that vent would have to be 3-inch. You do have the options of doing it to the I code too, which that vent could be 2-inch, but you have to choose. And when you apply for your permit, that would have to be indicated on your permit as well.
Okay.
We do have one other board member, so if we could take that share screen down. And the last board member that we have for question is Shane McNulty.
Oh, I don't have any questions. I was just pointing out an observation to the board. I was reviewing the submitted application documents, which are color coded. I think that perhaps the plans we just looked at have a misprint, because on the color coded one, it clearly shows the 3-inch drainage with a 2-inch vent. So I think those plans, that may have been a clerical error. If we can confirm that later on, but that's what it looks like a case of. That was all.
All right, so, and thank you. It's been a lot of questions, but in an attempt to get things right, it's just a process we have to go
course.
through. So now we're gonna, before we move on to building number 2, does your team, Phil, have any other comments as far as any of the discussions we just talked about, before we move on to building number 2?
Adderall?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the only comment I would have is I know that we're on record in the hearing. If I have misspoken in any way, it's not intentional by any means.
No, and that's perfectly fine. But we're just we need to get it right. And
Yeah.
we heard one thing, and perhaps your understanding was different, or your interpretation was different. No problem. There's absolutely no problem here. So I think what we're going to do at this point is we're going to hold that building number 1, and we're going to move on to building number 2. And unfortunately, we have to go through the same procedure. I have to call the case. It's just procedural. So today being June 6, 2024, we will now hear case number MI 2024-003-591 for number 1 Columbus Boulevard, building 2. Just to identify for record that we have the correct case, the associated PP number for this building will be PP 2024-007-793. For record, we will now be discussing the building that you have indicated as unisex restrooms. So are we all in agreement? We are talking about the right structure here.
Should be 12 by 34 unisex restrooms.
Okay. I will suspend with swearing in. We've done that on the previous building. I will suspend with questions for the board as far as communication. We've done that on the previous building. Phil, Dave, please proceed with the same process. Explain the building, the reason for your request, and so on.
Yeah, so it's everything is identical to building 1. Relocation of the river rink, putting into position this restroom is to help provide additional capacity on site, and it is located behind the lodge tent. This restroom is designed as a unisex restroom, and it has less number of units, less number of water closets. It's half the size of the 12 by 60, but everything that we had stated before is generally the same.
Okay. Does anyone else from your team have anything additional to add? All right. Hearing none, we will, man, this is easy. Hearing none, we will proceed with the same questioning as we did on building number 1, starting out with me. First, for record, can we assume, Phil, that all the information we talked about with respect to building number 1, as far as sizes, connections, material, and everything, is the same?
Yes, sir. That's the intention.
Okay, perfect. With that said, we've already eliminated a whole host of questions on building number 1, but because this is now a unisex restroom, I call into question the compartments, the water closet compartments. Are you prepared to talk a little bit about that? As per Philadelphia Plumbing Code, section number 403.3.4.1, water closet compartments serving all genders, which this is, partitions and doors enclosing the water closet, enclosing the water closets in the toilet room serving all genders must extend from floor to ceiling. And I understand you've been alerted to this.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
can you talk a little bit about that, please?
yeah, so we did not have them going all the way up, but it was just a decision made. If that needs to change for this approval, then we will bring them all the way up. They have not been fabricated yet. We were trying to allow, again, this is maybe an improper decision, just allow ventilation to travel and to allow light to travel simply from the ceiling through. If it's required, we will have them bring the walls up to the ceiling and create individual stalls. The original thinking was also, it's in a public environment. So we just wanted to realize it's in a public environment, share the lighting, share the illumination, share the venting, and just be aware of that environment, not creating those closed closet spaces. But we understand the code. So if it's required to get the approval today, we will absolutely commit to bringing the walls to the ceiling and enclosing it and then creating individual light fixtures inside each stall. And
well, I would like to explain to you and your team that not only the Plumbing Advisory Board, but the department itself, and many other folks put a lot of research, thought, and discussion and debate into this requirement. And I personally was part of the International Code Council, when this was first approved internationally. I won't speak for the rest of my board. They'll probably comment too, but I'll make a general comment that I feel, because of all the debate that went into this, as a matter of safety to the to people using these bathrooms, I would recommend as a provision of approval for your appeal request that these compartments go floor to ceiling to comply with the minimum code.
understood. And the split air system. So we bring the walls up and we put lights inside each space that accommodates illumination. My concern with the venting would mean we would then need the ducts or put something into those individual stalls as well, correct?
That, we're not permitted to give you design criteria and things like that, but generally, yes, that would mean that
Sure.
individual ventilation may be I'm saying may be required. You have to do your due diligence and your
Of
team
course.
has to do due diligence, but yes, may be required. And if this were in a building where it was sprinkled, individual sprinkler heads may also be required, but this building's not sprinklered, so that's not an issue. But yes, certainly individual ventilation may be required for these compartments.
Understood.
And again, this board is not trying to put any undue financial burden, on the city in doing this, but because this issue was debated so intently and people had such strong feelings about the safety of the people using these, we're considering them all gender. Like in our code, we have it designated as all gender as opposed to unisex, but it has the same meaning. Everyone's using the same room. So when you leave that water closet compartment, you're coming up, everybody's washing in basins and they're all commingled. Again, it's a safety issue.
Understood.
And our intention is not to put undue burden. And however this appeal shakes out for the non-metallic piping, I believe, and I think you're going to find that the rest of the board members also believe, that the floor to ceiling compartment safety issue is paramount.
Understood. And we'll accommodate for sure.
Okay, and again, if depending upon how this goes when we proceed, that may in fact be a condition of approval.
Understood.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to explain that. So now, considering building number 2, the unisex restroom, board member questions, Mike Bellata?
No question.
Michelle Brisbane,
No questions.
Sarah Poindexter,
No questions.
Bill Dobbins,
No questions, thank you.
Patrick McDonald.
No questions, sir.
Thanks, sir. David Hoffmeister,
No questions.
Brian Gilbert,
Two easy ones. If I asked you all the same questions from before, would all the same answers apply? It's the same design criteria, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other question I have is, you're bringing an 1.25 inch water line into this. Is there a backflow containment assembly on site?
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilbert, that one is included on their site work permit.
Okay, I don't have the site work permit.
Right, I mean, all the backflows are contained within a separate application.
Okay, all right, just want to clarify.
David Hoffmeister, did I get to you?
Yes, I had no questions.
Oh, thank you. And finally, Shane McNulty.
No questions.
Thank you, everyone. Phil, before we proceed with building number 3, do you or any of your team have additional comments on building number 2?
No, sir. Unless you do, I don't mean to speak for you.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Well, that was a relatively easy one. Mr. Perry smile on there because he knows how this board, strives to be very, 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 how should I say it, Dave, in a nice way? We like to cover all bases.
And we appreciate that. We thank you for your expertise, all of you.
All right, today being June 6, 2024, we will now hear case number MI 2024-003-560. Number 1, Christopher Columbus Boulevard, building number 3. For record and the sake of getting the proper permits correct, this will be under permit application PP 2024-007-953. Are we all in agreement that we're now talking about the correct structure?
Yes, should be 12 by 60 single restroom.
Okay. All right. I will suspend with the swearing in. We've done that previously. I will suspend with the board member questions regarding communications. And yeah, Phil, we are talking about the one with the single bathroom in it. Phil, same, proceed if you have. I'm having to assume everything that we talked about previously as Mr. Brian or Mr. Gilbert asked on this building number 2. We have to assume everything's the same.
Yes, sir. Everything's the same with the exception of the quantity of water closets. This is an office trailer with one single water closet. That's it. Everything else is identical.
Okay. That being the case, I have no questions. Mike Bellata,
No questions.
Patrick McDonald, Michelle Brisbane,
Sorry, I have no questions. I was on mute.
No questions, Walt.
thank you. David Hoffmeister,
No questions.
Sarah Poindexter,
No questions.
thank you. Shane McNulty,
No questions.
Brian Gilbert,
No
Brian-
question. Sorry, I thought I unmuted.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. And Bill Dobbins.
No questions.
Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do now, and this has been a little involved, and I apologize, it's taking a little bit of time. but again, in the essence of trying to get this right, we have to go through certain procedures. What we're going to do now is, we're going to ask if you have any final comments either on building 1, 2, or 3 before we go into deliberations. Phil, do you or any of your team have any final comments to provide?
Only, again, thank you for your time and consideration and guidance, and my apologies for any confusion that may have come up during the hearing. We're here to accommodate.
Oh, no
So-
apologies necessary. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to ask Mr. Motto to place you back into the waiting room. We are going to chat about buildings 1, 2, and 3 collectively, and we'll be back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Phil, could you let me know, please, when the appellates have been placed, all the appellates have been placed in the waiting room? Mr. Kelly, can you show us off record now?
Yes, Chair.
Good morning. Thank you for your patience. Today being June 6th, 2024, we are continue to hear case number MI 2024-003-590 for 1 South Christopher Columbus Boulevard, Building 1. Board, what say you?
I motion that we approve the requested variance with provisos.
All right, appellate team, the provisions that Mr. Hoffmeister alluded to are as follows. Provision number 1, proper freeze protection. You must do proper freeze protection on the under part of the structures. Provision number 2, this appeal, if granted, extends only to 5 years after the date of issuance of permit. If these structures continue to be utilized after 5 years, the interior piping must be brought up to current Philadelphia Plumbing Code requirements. Do you understand the 2 provisions, and do you agree on behalf of the owner to the 2 provisions described?
Yes.
Mr. Perry? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
There's been a motion on the floor. I need a second.
I second.
Thank you, Sarah. I will now take a vote to concur with the motion to approve the variance for materials with the provisions described. Mike Bellata,
Approve.
Patrick McDonald,
Approved.
Dave Hoffmeister,
Approve.
Brian Gilbert,
I vote in the negative.
thank you, Sarah Poindexter,
Approve.
and the chair votes in the affirmative. The motion carried and your appeal has been approved by the Plumbing Advisory Board. At the end of the 3, I'll describe the process, as Mr. Perry knows the process, but I'll describe it to everyone else. I would like to make a general statement that just in line with Shane's comments that granting this appeal doesn't relieve the owner or the appellate's team from any other code requirements that may be applicable. This is simply for the appeal that's in front of us. This has nothing to do with fixture counts or design or sizing or anything of that nature. Just want to make sure, I want to put it out there, make sure we understand that. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Continuing with case number MI 2024-003-591 for number 1 Christopher Columbus Boulevard, building number 2. Board, what say you?
I motion that we approve the variance request with proviso.
Second.
Let me get to the provisions, Sarah, then I'll be happy to accept your second. The provisions as stated by Mr. Hoffmeister will be provision number 1, provide proper freeze protection to the under part of the structures. Provision number 2, that this approval only extends to 5 years after the date of the permit issuance. If after 5 years the buildings are still utilized, the interior piping must be brought up to current Philadelphia plumbing code. Provision number 3. This is for building number 2. Please take into consideration. Provision number 3 for building 2. The individual water closet compartments must extend from floor to ceiling. Phil, do you understand the provisions for conditions for approval, and do you accept these provisions on behalf of the appellate team and the owner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Perry, you go with that?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Sarah, I will now take your second. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will now, we will now proceed to vote on the concurrence with the motion to approve with the provisions stated. Mike Bellata,
Approve.
Patrick McDonald,
Approve.
David Hoffmeister,
Approve.
Brian Gilbert,
Negative.
thank you. Sarah Poindexter,
Approve.
and the chair votes in the affirmative. By a majority vote of the board, your appeal for building number 2 has been granted with the provisions previously stated. Continuing to hear case number MI 2024-003-560, number 1 Christopher Columbus Boulevard, building number 3. Board, what say you?
I motion for approval.
I'm going to digress, and I apologize to everyone on the call. I want to go back to the provisions for building number 2 and clarify the floor to ceiling requirements for the individual water closet compartments must comply with section number 405.3.4.1 of the Philadelphia Plumbing Code that states water closet compartments serving all genders, partitions and doors enclosing the water closet and toilet room serving all genders shall extend from floor to ceiling. I apologize, that's just a clarification to the provision. Now continuing with building number 3. There's a motion on the floor to approve with provisions to be stated.
Based on those provisions.
Provision number 1, provide proper freeze protection to the under part of the structures. Provision number 2, this approval extends for 5 years after date of permit issuance. If the buildings are utilized after the 5-year period, all piping inside the building shall be brought up to current Philadelphia Plumbing Code standards. That is it for number 2. Phil, do you understand the provisions set forth, and do you accept them on behalf of the appellate team and the owner?
Yes, sir. Same for building number 3. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
Understood and accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Motion on the floor. The provisions have been stated. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Thanks, Sarah. Motion on the floor and seconded to approve the appeal with the provisions stated. We'll now take a vote to concur with the motion. Mike Bellotta,
Approve.
Patrick McDonald.
Yes,
Patrick,
I'm sorry, Chairman. Yes,
thank you.
approve.
Dave Hoffmeister,
Approve.
Brian Gilbert.
Negative.
Thank you, Sarah Poindexter.
Approve.
And the chair votes in the affirmative. Appeal for building number 3 has been granted. So I would like to explain a little bit. Now, the Plumbing Advisory Board has voted in the majority to approve all 3 of your appeal requests. Our recommendation will now go to the commissioner for his approval and signature. That process usually takes probably 5 days or so, 5 working business days or so. If you haven't heard from staff in that period of time, I urge you to reach out for board's administration and get that proper documentation that you're requesting. Anyone from the appellate team have any questions or final comments for the board?
No, sir. Thank you all very much for your time and for your approval. We greatly appreciate it.
I also want to thank the chairman and the board for your input and your wisdom on this project, which will make for a better project given your input. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I don't want to apologize. It took so long, but you know, I do apologize. It took a little bit longer, but I think everybody can see that we strive, you know, in the interest of getting things right. So with that, Mr. Kelly, could you please show us off record?